Logan'sville Book Review, A Different Shade of Green, A Biblical Approach to Environmentalism and the Dominion Mandate. I decided to make my first book review one of the most recent books I've read. The information is relatively fresh in my mind and therefore easier to navigate through to come up with some coherent thoughts. This book is a different shade of green, one of which I stumbled upon during one of my online book perusals that my wife is not a fan of. As clearly stated in the subtitle, A Biblical Approach to Environmentalism and the Dominion Mandate, this work, written by a Christian biology professor, addresses an extremely popular talking point in our world today. Whether prompted by threats that one more cow fart will cause another global flood, or the Sunday drive through the once cornfield that is now hosting towering erected propeller-looking structures, which occasionally may send a bird or two into glory. The great thing about this book is that Wilson begins by building a great foundation in part 1, laying a thorough yet easy to follow biblical defense for caring for our physical habitat in all its totality. As one that has a hard time not wishing all mosquitoes extinct, and also has a tendency to cringe at anyone shouting the word green, always assuming the underlying political agenda, this is a humbling reminder of God's handiwork and a guard against allowing man's greed and corruption to deter from caring deeply for all that God masterfully created and that daily declares his glory. Wilson moves into what often gets overlooked in hyper-emotional dialogues, how things operate in reality. Part 2 gives what he calls practical reasons for wise dominion. This includes very helpful and simple summaries of the environmental cycles that everyone should be familiar with for those times when one of the highly educated, ignorant university clones gets loose with their rantings of a much greener world without CO2. Wait, what do those green things consume again? Part 3 of this book is what can be harmful if you skip the first two. Neglect the heart of God in the matter and just like to dismantle illogical arguments. But Wilson shows much humility, intelligence, and wit throughout, working through how to think and address many of the ecological claims of the day, often just using logic and encouraging his readers to not get caught up in the hysteria, but instead to think biblically and practically through the issues. Has anyone proven a warmer globe is a bad thing? Could it potentially have many positives? And could our solutions to non-problems cause real problems? This book is a mixture of science, logic, and, most important, biblical truth of seeing these issues from the vantage point of God's revelation. I leave you with one of my favorite observations from Mr. Wilson of our current situation as he walks through the cunning 3 steps our media and politicians use in their countless efforts of crying, "Wolf! No, really, wolf this time, guys." After the first 2 steps of identifying a real or imagined problem, and then whipping a public frenzy up over the enormous magnification of the problem that lies ahead, he says this: third, convince the public that only the state can save us from certain doom. The state is our only savior. You should vote for candidates and legislation that prioritize the problem so we can get to work saving the planet from certain doom. If you vote for the conservative candidate, you are an enemy of the planet and of the future happiness of all life on Earth.